And the floor is yours, Professor Attina.
Thank you very much, Eileen, for this presentation. I am very glad to collaborate with your university and you. And in particular, I thank Daphne for receiving my proposal of this paper, which takes me to be involved in analyzing the problems of climate change. I am a very newcomer in this field, and of course I am very much intrigued by this problem. My perspective is that of analyzing climate change politics in relation to world politics, and in particular to the current crisis of the world order and change towards a new world order. I prepared a PowerPoint, PowerPoint, let me open my presentation is here. Which one? This one? Okay. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay. So I divide the presentation in three parts. The first one is about climate change as a collective problem, and therefore the need to have a world policy responding to this problem of climate change, global warming. Any collective problems create a political space, that's to say, involves all the actors into one political space, and therefore all the units, in our case the states, have to give the same response or abide to the same policy. Therefore, a policy must be made within the existing world political system. Now, what we know about the contemporary world political system and the making of world policies. I received a message that is quite unstable. I wish you can see, hear me. Well, in the world political system, the policies are made by some international organizations, like the United Nations, the Monetary Fund, and the World Trade Organizations. And the authority is in a few states, or the great powers, and one in particular, that has qualities for influencing the making of the world policies. That's to say, as agenda power, or select the problems to give a response, and is good in controlling the decision-making power in that international organizations. But the position of leading power or hegemonic power in the world political system is not steady forever. Goes through some phases. And I agree with the hegemonic theory of world politics about this phase or life cycle of hegemony. In particular, here I remind to us what has been the hegemonic order of the American system. has been going through 3 phases or 4 phases: implementation or delegitimation and order transition, which include both coalition reshuffling and macro decision phase. Well, I remind to you how it worked, because the production of a climate change policy will be influenced by the past history of the current American order. The American coalition selected immediately after the Second World War 4 main problems: finance stability, trade liberalizations, security from aggression, and end of colonialism. Created the institutions for making these policies, but these policies have been going through these transformations. That is, after the consent by many states toward the American policies, came the phase of delegitimation, and from this phase of delegitimation, we are now in a new phase of order transitions. Therefore, in this condition, it's very difficult to give answer to new problems. There are many new problems. Climate change is one of these, but a full round response to these policies has not been made. I remind again that the 3 main policies have been made by multilateralism. As a matter of fact, there is a process for making the world climate change policy through a multilateral method or mechanisms. Let me shortly remind to you what I mean by multilateral policy making. Well, it's not only that the states meet together, it is also a way of producing policies. They have to share some principles, keep the participation of all the states on an equal base, and then apply the rules without discrimination. This is, I would say, one pattern that presents many varieties. And as a matter of fact, in the IMF, the equal participation is not fully respected, nor in the United Nations Security Council. For this reason, only the policy toward international trade is made with a full strict multilateral mechanism. But this way of doing policy is also the policy that is currently practiced in the process for making the climate change policy. And this policy is in fact in crisis or hard to be made. Now, this is how works policy making in the world system. What we know about making the climate change policy. Research is mainly based on the negotiation process and does not take into considerations very much the systemic processes, the world political context. Although the researchers give some importance to the great powers, because of course they are great emitters of greenhouse gases. They have specific technology for responding to this problem and also finance resources, and they can influence the other countries. But the existing knowledge is completely unaware of the importance of studying a competition on world order transitions or competition between the great powers as conditioning the making of the climate change policy. There is one exception. This article by Bernstein Steven that explain the main reasons for absence of responsibility. And these are the three reasons here remind to you. That's to say, lack of congruence between systemic and environmental great power. This is not very much true, because only India is not a great power in competition for world order, but a great emitters. The second reason is weak empirical links between action on the environment and maintenance of international orders. In other terms, United States or China or Russia do not care about one single policy about climate change, because this does not influence their strategy to become the hegemonic power. Is true, is not true. As a matter of fact, the current American leadership has been hurt by the position by Trump administration towards climate change problems. The third reason instead is very serious and important. That's to say, global power play a role in any making of policies if receive some rewards, benefits from playing his own resources to in this game. So I remind then that as a United States have a special position, special rights in financial policy, in security policy, because they have procedures for power that give institutional power to them in the IMF and the and the United Nations, not in the WTO. So after having this information about how climate change policy is researched by scientists and how policies are made at the global level, let's see more close climate change problem and the policy making process about climate change. I share this definition of climate change as a wicked problem, something more than a collective problem or a collective and wicked problem. That's to say, solving this problem create great attention in the political actors in the states, and so the topic is high salient. There is great mobilizations there is extreme polarizations. That means different actors have very distant positions and views about how to solve or respond to the problem of climate change. More aspect of this wicked problem is the fact that some aspects of the problem have different consequences for different actors, and therefore this makes the solution of the problem very complex and resistant also to time. And I show you in this slide very briefly, synthetically, the nature of this climate change policy making. The policy making has been growingly hard to make because more actors are involved, especially after that there has been a failure in this negotiation process with the so-called Kyoto Protocol. So the states, the government are still in a privileged position in making this policy. The institution, which is the United Nations Framework Convention, is the institution for making this policy. Why is important to know something about this process of policy making? Because, as I mentioned here, there are two important events in this process. That's to say, the Tokyo Protocol and the Paris Agreement that have been signed within the United Nations Framework Convention. Now, these two conferences and the result of these two conferences changed the game for making this world policy towards the climate change. And in particular, the most important change is this, that with the Tokyo Protocol, the making of the policy was centralized in the United Nations Framework Convention. And so it was a top-down approach, imposing on all the states the same targets and the same timetables. In Paris in 2015, instead, this way of doing the policy has been completely reversed. And the countries, the single country is the owner of the making of the policy. And this is in particular defined with this national determined contributions. That is to say, if there is a world target, are the countries, the single countries, responsible for deciding how and with what timetable they will achieve this policy or this target. Another important change between these two conferences has been these different targets, so to say, mitigation and adaptation. Sorry, adaptation, no, is wrong. Well, in Tokyo, actions to stop climate change was the target. In Paris, instead, to these targets has been added this adaptation target. That's to say, for the time being, let's reduce the vulnerability to climate change. This introduced confusion, if you like, both adaptation and mitigation keep as targets of this process, but after Paris, after these good results of the negotiation process in Paris, the process has been going bad. As a matter of fact, in the last conference in Madrid, no decision has been made, while the problem, as also has been mentioned in the previous presentation, in the keynote speech by Professor Sachs, the conditions are worsening, and so we have to make a decision about not only stopping the production of carbon dioxide, but also regarding energy. And at this moment, then, the present competition among the great powers come back on the forefront, I would say, because they have to make important decisions and influence the other countries. I created this synthetic table about what is the triangular politics, and in particular, the position of the three most important great powers and great emitters of greenhouse gases, United States, China, and Russia. And they have quite different, very important different positions regarding the steps to do to get to climate change response. The United States, not only the Trump administration, but also the previous Obama administrations are firm on the mechanism of national determination contribution. China instead is firm on playing as the leaders of the developing countries that have quite different positions. And also China is pushing for developing renewable energy sources, but for the need of energy that China has at this time, develops or keep going with good partnership with the oil producing countries. Lastly, Russia has no position on renewable energy, but has its own national economy dependent on oil and gas production. Therefore, China is the most distant from the target of zero carbon emission. Now, I stress in this slide the further differences between the three, among the three major powers. That's to say, while China and the United States gave an example of good co-leadership in the approval of the Paris Agreement, they had very different positions. The United States are favorable to reducing CO2, but with the trading emission system or even the carbon taxes, while China want to get to this reduction, but substituting existing emission with renewable energy sources. Sorry.
Fulvio, I'm so sorry, but can we just,
Okay.
just two,
Okay.
3 minutes more?
Yes, I am going to the end. Then, once more, China and the United States are on different positions regarding the functioning of the United Nations Framework Convention, because the United States has no power in this United Nations Framework Convention. While I want to say some concluding words about European Union, because it's frequently mentioned as leaders in global network, global negotiations regarding climate change, but also European Union had some problems in developing a stable position regarding this. In particular, because some in the European Union are today against faster going towards the climate change policy. So thank you for listening, and yes, I finished. Thank you.